In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So we're going through this series right now here at Our Lady of Grace on the different parts of the Mass. What I'd like to do today is suspend that just for today, because I want to address a current issue. And the church cannot remain silent, as the faithful who live in the midst of a culture are oftentimes combated with an opinion or views. And oftentimes the faithful ask, well, what am I supposed to believe? How do we approach this? What does my faith tell me? What does the teachings of Christ instruct me? And those are good questions, and the church must respond. Otherwise, the faith will end up being taught by a fallen culture, by its institutions, by its media. And we've allowed this to go on for so long that now the faithful, they think as the unbelievers. In large part because they have not sought instruction, and in large part because they have not been given instruction. So many things happening in our culture, and the church acts as if she is not involved or engaged in this or has no responsibility. The church has a great responsibility, for she is mother and teacher, instituted by Christ, founded by Christ. And the church must teach. Now, all the things that are happening in our world, it's important that we very clearly emphasize that when we speak as the church, we do not speak in the political forum. I don't have time for that. We address them in their moral aspects. And it's important, and I'm surprised we have forgotten this as a society, that every political issue is first and foremost a moral issue. And there, Mother Church has her place. And she should speak the truth in love, but speak. And the church must speak and address the issues we see in our world today in their context as a moral issue. And so with that said, I want to address the defense of our police. I want to speak about the support, the funding, and the esteem that we are called as believers to show to our police officers. I do not speak as a removed person in this particular context, as I have a nephew who is a state trooper and is protecting us on our highways, as I have guided men discerning the priesthood but later felt called to some other service, whether to our country in the military or to our society as firefighters or police officers. These young men I have guided, and then to see them say yes to a noble service. I also speak as the shepherd of law enforcement officers even within our parish, serving as their spiritual father and seeking to defend the noble profession that they have pursued in order to serve our society, whether that's federal, state, or local. Do you realize how many law enforcement people we have in our parish? How generous the Catholic Church is, how many of our young men and women say yes to serve society? Because inherent in the Christian understanding, the Catholic understanding of what it means to be a disciple is a call to service. In so many respects, not only do we speak from a moral perspective, but we speak on behalf of our own. Our fellow Catholics who from their faith in Christ have said, I will serve. I will put my life on the line in order to defend the common good. And a healthy society has always revered that vocation. A church, a healthy church, has always spoken defense of that vocation and has applauded the members of that church, of our church, who have said yes in order to give that service. So what do we understand then as believers? What do the teachings of Christ teach us about police officers? Well, first, we hold the very countercultural opinion now that all authority is from God. Authority can be abused, in which case it must be taken away. But authority is ultimately a gift from God. And we have to be careful in terms of how we define abuse of authority. Because sometimes you just have a bad person. And sometimes you just have bad policy. But authority is given to us by God. You know, the early Christians were commanded by the apostles to pray for the emperor who was killing them, feeding them to lions and using them as torches on the streets of Rome. You will pray for the emperor, for he holds an authority from God. Abused, but an authority from God. Do you realize that's a bedrock teaching as Christians? Yes, as odd as it can be, the various men and women who are elected to hold authority in our country have that authority from God. Those who are delegated to be police officers and to exercise and enforce that authority have that authority from God. Yes, we believe that as Christians. Now, as a child, I used to think that police officers were different from us because, hey, they got to carry a gun, right? Then again, I grew up in Germany and Texas. In Texas, everyone had a gun, so I don't know what I was thinking, right? You know? But I used to think that police officers are different because they could give you a ticket. Right? They could put you in jail. Right? In my immature, childish mind, I thought police officers were different because of the powers that they had been given. As I grew older and allowed for a maturing of my mind and my morals, I began to understand that police officers were different because they bear a sacred trust. They are the personification of the common good. They are the personification of law and order. They are the personification of right judgment and justice. These fallen men and women who are commissioned to be police officers carry a weight, but they carry it. We could say in summary, the police officers are different because they are us. They carry us. They carry our society, its laws, its virtue. They personify that in their very office. Now, when I was a child, I can remember going to restaurants with my parents and my siblings, and we did not have a lot of money. And I can remember my father changing his order because there was a police officers in the restaurant. We were going to pay for their meals. And that oftentimes meant that Dad changed his order and we didn't get dessert. But that's what we do. Only later in life did I understand what he was teaching us, and more importantly, what he was doing as a citizen, as a Christian. These are police officers. They represent the best of who we are. They are us. And they merit our support, our kindness. They are us. Dear friends, we know as Christians that all men and women have equal dignity. My goodness, we have died in defense of that belief. This is why we are opposed to racism, why we are opposed to abortion. This is why we have such strong policies in terms of those who are poor or those who are immigrants, because we understand that every human person has equal dignity. But we also realize that every person does not have equal status or equal authority or equal responsibility. Our society has radically confused this. Equal means the same. We see it in sexual morality. They cannot distinguish that a man and woman has equal dignity, but they're different. The transgender movement has forgotten this. Bad law has forgotten this. We see it forgotten in moral teachings on sexuality. We see it forgotten even in our understanding of authority. Well, that police officer is equal in dignity to me. That means we're the same. No. No, that police officer represents society. They hold a higher status, a higher authority, a higher responsibility. They are us. They represent the common good. Now, if this is a difficult concept to understand, I can agree with you, because it was not really until college, until studying St. Thomas Aquinas, that I finally got it. Even with the maturing of my mind, okay, police are not just different because they have power, but they're different because they represent the common good, they represent justice, but it still needed a certain development, which St. Thomas Aquinas always provides. The man was a genius. Right? In one situation, he recounts a judge. And before the judge comes his son, the judge's own son, who has violated the law. And his father, he wants to wipe it away. Because who wants to see their son suffer or endure punishment? His father, he wants to wipe it away. But he's a judge. He holds a higher status, a higher authority, a higher responsibility. He holds an office greater than himself. He holds an office that represents the common good. And therefore, that judge was bound, as it broke his paternal heart, to exercise and bring justice upon his own son, because he was a judge. He held an office greater than his own family, greater than his own dignity, greater than any personal thing that he may have held, for he represented the common good. And just with that judge, so with the police officer. And as I was studying this particular example by Aquinas, it stood out for me. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, yes, the police, they hold this authority, they hold this office. Which is why, in spite of personality or difficulty, we merit them respect. Similarly, I remember my father telling me, and my siblings, the two things that police officers need from you, that they rarely get from anyone, is an apology and compliance. My father's a hard man. He was clear. Do you think these police need to deal with you, acting the fool, distracting them in the performance of their duty? First, you offer them an apology. Follow the speed limit. Don't make them pull you over. Offer them an apology. And then secondly, you give them compliance. Whatever they tell you to do, you do. You see, my father understood in a simple way what the great scholars of our faith teach us. That our police are us. They are the best of us. They represent something greater than themselves. We've all met that police officer who was a jerk. I'm sometimes scandalized when I go to the abortion clinic and I see police officers standing there, the very personification of justice, defending the most unjust act in our society. And sometimes to see the willful disrespect of a police officer. But he holds an office greater than himself or herself, which is why we are bound to smile and to comply, and to be a source of consolation to those who bear authority. Now, make no mistake, any bad police officer, that police officer merits to be denounced and to suffer the penalty of law, the very law that they betrayed. But also, in that process, they are also protected by law. They also deserve a fair trial without fear, as every citizen is bound to have. So any police officer that is bad, this teaching today defends no one. In fact, this teaching holds our police officers to a higher standard, to the standard of the office that they hold, that has been entrusted to them. They bear a sacred trust. Bad police are rare, truth be told. And systemic racism in the police force is a lie. The vast majority of the men and women who have said yes in order to defend us have done so because of their love for the common good, their love for their neighbor, their desire to make our society a better place, a safer place. And they merit our respect. They merit our compliance. They merit our support. And our police officers, They merit our esteem. Look at what they do and what they put on the line in order to keep us safe. Our police officers, they are us. They are the common good. If we tear them down, we tear down our society. We tear down ourselves. As Christians, we understand and acknowledge that authority is from God. We respect the men and women, as fallen as they might be, who exercise that authority. As Christians, loudly and clearly, we support our police officers, for they are us, and they merit our esteem.